Hello there, Qckslvrslash here, and today we have a video courtesy of 1289 driving the Tier 10 American cruiser, the Des Moines. And this was the first raid of Fire Beast, and it's going to get a little buff in the patch that by the time you see this will have dropped. The other funny thing that I just noticed is this game also features one of my clanmates in Qckslvrslash DD, and someone I recognize from a lot of ranked battles, Deck Ape E. And this should be an interesting one. The Des Moines is a tricky ship, I find, to kind of really do well in. And part of it is just the potential. There are a lot of people who have driven the ship. It's been out since the game came out, and it can do some serious damage as a Qckslvrslash runs in to one of 1289's division mates who hasn't loaded yet. Big old aircraft carrier just pushing its way through Yamato. No worries though, and kind of something I haven't seen in a while on this map particularly, and that's a really even split. 4 ships going to A, a destroyer at B, and it looks like 4 ships kind of going to C. And, you know, the split can work really well, but you have to play cautiously. You have to know that you're not really going to ever just wholesale outnumber a team at any one location. You might hold a slight advantage. In the case of C here, you know, looks like they've got 1 person. So yeah, a really strong advantage, but at A, they're definitely undermanned, so you can't dilly-dally and mess around too much. At the other side of the map, you've got to get the enemies who are fewer in number killed out of the way and into action. And enemy carrier sending any planes within, you know, the 7.2 kilometer bubble of the Des Moines is just suicidal. Case in point, 1289 already has 11, 12, 13, 14 planes shot down. And, well, there goes the entire enemy squadron. And you'll notice Qckslvrslash seemed to keep his planes more or less above this pack of cruisers, baiting the enemy carrier into the area, and, well, the enemy carrier took it and lost 3 of his squadrons for it. Meanwhile, other cruisers finished off that Qckslvrslash. They've captured Charlie, well, nearly, and it means 1289 can turn around and basically start closing the other side of the map to help those guys over at A, who I can guarantee right now are feeling pretty crap. And I'll also notice one of the guys, that Yamato on 1289's team, still hasn't loaded, so hopefully everything's working. You know, you can see in chat 1289 being like, yeah, wrong comms, trying to get things to work, and he disappeared. So sounds like a disconnect, and that sucks because, you know, you take a lot of heat for being AFK in a game, and it's not always true. Sometimes you crash, you disconnect, it happens. The main way for anyone who doesn't know to tell the difference is if the guns are pointing perfectly fore and aft, you know, in their storage travel position, they're disconnected. They've never loaded into the match. Or partway through the match, if they disconnect, the guns naturally go back to fore and aft. If the guns are just aimed off in a direction and the ship's not moving, that is typically indicative of someone who's AFK. So next time you see a player on your team who is not moving, just take a look at their guns and it tells you exactly what's happening. And, you know, take a look before starting to just fling hate, because power can go out, things happen. Even AFK players, you know, ultimately if your house starts burning down, or, you know, you have a baby who's crying, you have to deal with those. You can't just be like, no, I'm playing my game. Baby's gonna sit in its crib and cry. Too bad. It's just not an option. Well, for some it might be, but for the rest who choose to be decent human beings, it's not. You can see Deck Ape there about to get killed flooding or burning down. And New Orleans presenting a perfect target here for 1289. And, well, he doesn't land the shot. But fortunately, this ship has one thing going for it, and that is an amazing rate of fire. And that New Orleans has put himself into a very interesting shot. He's hugging this edge of land, and all it's done is meant he can't turn away. He has to turn towards or keep driving flat on. And, well, now the citadels start dropping. One in the first volley, one in the second. You know, friendly clearly just hit him hard. And that New Orleans is not going to be long for this world to play like that. Meanwhile, 1289, you know, bow into the big threats. He's got a Moskva there, Tirpitz. He's got a lot of things shooting at him. But for the most part, he's pointing his bow pretty much straight on. And, well, the Des Moines isn't, you know, quite battleship like the Moskva can be. It is better when its bow is pointing towards the enemy. Any ship pretty much is. Because you're just not exposing those big flat citadels, and, well, you know, shells are going to ricochet as they run down. So, a bit of a lull in the action here. And this whole battle's kind of had a bit of an odd pace. You know, something will expose itself, it quickly gets killed one way or the other, and then kind of just dies off again. And you can see what's happening. The enemy team's basically been corralled into this corner of the map, and they haven't even taken aim. And that's where things start to really get kind of dangerous. Because if you don't push in uniformly, you know, the ship that sticks out is going to get focused down. Kind of like this Des Moines who's trying to drive out. You know, he's the closest thing to everything on 1289's team, and they're all lighting him up. And when this cyclone closes in, as it's about to start doing, that's when things get really interesting. Because if you play well, case in point, right now, if you look at 1289, only one ship is inside that 8-kilometer bubble. And it's that Ibuki. Now granted, the Ibuki's probably going to be dead in a volley or two here. But if you focus on making sure only one ship ever enters that 8-kilometer circle, you're only ever one-on-one. You can fight some very disproportionate battles very well in that situation. And, well, 1289 doing the right thing. Loads HE, the Ibuki's, you know, not a great angle. Finish him off. Next target, another Ibuki right ahead. Once again, only ship visible inside 8K. Now reasonably, there's a couple more. Pops his radar, lights up that enemy Des Moines. And, well, that enemy Des Moines is, like, pretty much showing his whole side. You know, 1289 gives a bit, but he's turning back in to hopefully deflect any shells, and you really have to be cautious of that. You know, the biggest piece of advice I give to my friends when they get to any of these high-tier American cruisers is pretty much ignore your rear gun. It doesn't exist, because when you try to swing your fat booty around to fire it, that's when you eat big damage. Now, of course, there's exceptions to the rule. Like, right now, he doesn't really have an option. He's got to get around this corner land, and unfortunately, eat some torpedoes, but once again, really well angled now that he's exposed, and he's just waiting for that Ibuki to give the perfect flat side. And these rate-of-fire ships, that's what you do. Even though you have another volley in a couple seconds, if you wait, your first set of hits count, and then you reload before they get a chance to do anything. You see, the Ibuki was probably turning to get his peds off, didn't even have the chance, as 1289 landed 5 citadels there, wiping them off the face of the earth. The Benson's next, and, well, after the Benson, I can guarantee you they're going to be heading for this battleship. And you can see his teammate, division mate I should say, closing in on that Tirpitz, and the Yamato's finally loaded. So their buddy is back, and, well, he's still alive. That's more than you can say. A lot of times when you wind up disconnected, you come back and it's over. And once again, a good choice of ammo by 1289. You'd see a lot of people in cruisers going, oh, it's a battleship, time to fire my HE. But that Tirpitz is showing a lot of side, and when they do, you can see you can land some very heavy hits. Now, personally, if he had the shot, I'd be aiming for that flat chunk of the bow. You can get a lot of damage in there. Unfortunately, with the way the Tirpitz is going around the corner, better to aim for that kind of just above the main belt to try to get, maximum damage in, or even, the superstructure. AP is still going to connect and do damage. And now he's got a Montana, and the Montana, very deadly. But he's nose in. Montana is not that great with aim, and this is the exact situation that Des Moines excels at, is just pumping damage into battleships at close range. You can see 1289's not even zooming in, you don't need to, and at closer range like this, you can actually get your barrels down a little more, zoomed out in quote-unquote third person. And it doesn't take much. He's continuing to close, and some might be tempted to stop, but by closing like this, putting the pressure on, it makes it very hard for that Montana to continue to track with his guns. And if you can cross behind and cross the T, he's not getting those guns back on you. So it's a way of protecting yourself, as counterintuitive as bullying right up against a ship might be. And even against the Yamato, its second turret can't fire straight ahead inside 5 kilometers. Now, I've heard that that's changing in the test server. They've allowed the gun to come down to 2 degrees, which should let it shoot just a little bit closer. But if you look at the gun arrangement on the Yamato, it becomes pretty obvious it can't shoot that close. And overall, I thought 1289 did a great job in that game, showing how strong the Des Moines can still be. And it just got a buff. 764,000 credits, 9,800 experience, Confederate high caliber, 213,000 damage, 143 shell hits, and 4 kills, 16 citadels. I liked this ship before the patch, which is from when this game is. That extra little bit of rate of fire, I think, is going to help it out. It's not something you're going to feel, moment to moment, but overall, I think people should be able to put out just a little more damage over the course of a game. But he didn't need that extra damage finishing top of the team. And the other thing is, look at all those plane kills. I wish I could get a game where carriers sent their planes my way. I never seem to really get to kill any, even if I'm hanging out near battleships or any of the targets. Most times carriers just know not to fly their planes anywhere near you. Anyways, 1289, thank you very much for the replay. To anyone else who would like to submit theirs, Qckslvrslash@gmail.com. If you enjoyed it, please consider giving the video a thumbs up or subscribing to the channel. And as always, I'm Qckslvrslash, and I'll have another one for you guys tomorrow.